tuned to Hoops Lounge Radio. We want to thank you for joining us here in the beautiful green room, Maison Sociale, here on Saint-Laurent in Montreal. It's a beautiful time. Thank you for joining Hoops Lounge, where basketball is the official language.
My name is Marc Griffin, a.k.a. Montreal Marc. You first heard Phil Boileau, Sporting Phil. We have a special guest, Dwight Walton, former Canadian basketball stalwart, national team member, an Olympian in the '88 Olympics. We've been doing this for 2 years. Dwight's been a friend of ours for a long time. And one thing a lot of Canadians and people around the world have been talking about the last week has been a man named Steve Nash. Dwight, you played with Steve for a number of years. He's a close personal friend of yours. Start at the beginning. Tell me about the day you first met Steve Nash.
That would be my pleasure, first of all. As I've said many times on whatever radio show that I've been on, the friendship I have with Steve, I respect and honor it because of the man that I've known him to become. It's been a treasure. It's been a joy of mine to be able to say that I am in the circle of Steve Nash. And it's a very sacred place because he's not open to everybody. Mm-hmm. He is the coolest guy you know. What you see is what you get, whether you see him on television or through radio or whatever media forum he's out there. But he's a very personable guy, very great guy. And the first time I met him goes back to 1992. We were trying out for the national team. We were getting prepared for the Olympic qualification tournament that summer in Portland. The first time that the U.S. was going to have NBA players play in the Olympics. We were training in Victoria, and this 15-year-old kid was amongst us. I had no idea who this guy was. But whatever we did, he stood out. And we had a drill or a conditioning test called the beep test back then that we did. The coaches wanted to find out who did their work prior to the tryout. And Steve was among us. He was 15 years old. He won every drill that we did. He was the most fit player that we had that day at 15 years old. Also on that day, in the morning, he had tried out or had a rugby game before that. All right, that just showed you the type of athlete that he was. That weekend, he was one of our best players, not only one of our best point guards, but one of our best players in camp that weekend. If you ask me, he should have made our team that weekend.
At 15.
At 15 years old. But out of respect to the point guards who were there before him, Eli Pasquale, Ron McMahon, and Montreal's own Trevor Williams. Those three guys had worked so hard to get those spots. Ken Shields, the head coach at the time, would have loved to have had Steve, but he'd already, honed those three guys before him, that it would have been difficult. The youngest player ever to make our national team, our senior national team, was Leo Routens. He was 16 at the time under Coach Donahue. That would have been a record for our country if Steve had made our team. Steve was great. He was young. He was green. No experience, but his IQ for the game was so high. That it stood out that weekend. That was the first time I met him, and I could proudly say that to this day, March 29th, 2015, we still maintain the contact, the friendship. Listen, we played 5-6 years together, but it's the stuff off the floor that we maintained. We maintain that friendship today. I maintain that friendship with Jay Triano today. I maintain that friendship with Rowan Barrett today. Those guys were not only my teammates, but they're good friends of mine. And there's a reason why it works. We can talk off the floor. We can talk about things in secret because they know that it's going to stay in that circle. And that's why I totally respect and honor the friendship, not only that I have with Steve Nash, but with Rowan and Jay as well, because we talk about our national program all the time. And I feel honored and privileged to be in that niche. And I will do whatever it takes to maintain that. I don't ever want to lose that because I find it sacred.
Inside the sacred circle.
No, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. To know Steve from 1992 up until now, it's been a pleasure. It's been awesome.
There was an article 2 days ago in the National Post talking about Steve, and when he retired this week, asked about the highlights of his 20-odd year career. And one of the things that comes up so often is the time he spent in Sydney at the Olympics in 2000. Even though they didn't get a medal, I think they went 5-2.
It's crazy. They went 5-2, and as I've said, I don't want to cut you off here, but as I've said many times, it's not how many games you win; it's when you lose.
Right.
In those tournaments. So.
Now, the article said, despite the millions and millions of dollars he's won over the years, earned in his career, he didn't get paid for the Olympics, yet they meant that much more. You saw him literally crying coming off the court in Sydney, losing in the quarterfinals. What, does it mean? You've done it yourself to play for your country, and you see these young guys coming up. What does it mean, Canadian basketball-wise, what he's meant to the country as a national hero in a way?
And to add on to that story before I answer your question, he also gave those guys some money for
travel and stuff,
for all of that stuff.
Yeah.
That's what kind of guy Steve was. Listen, as I've told everybody, and even guys in the NBA will tell you, there's nothing like representing your country in any sport. To be recognized as one of the best players in any sport in your country is an honor and a privilege that no one can ever take away from you. That besides your teammates, your whole country is watching you, cheering you on, wanting you to do your best for your country. Of course, everybody wants you to win, but still, there's no greater honor than putting on your country's colors, your flag, representing what, the hard work that you put into it. It's a great honor, and I've done a lot of things in my basketball career, both on and off the floor, but that to date is my greatest achievement. Being able to represent my country for 10 years, I did it, and there was no prouder 10 years of my life representing my country playing basketball.
One interesting point, and it really was poignant this summer with Paul George's, freak leg injury, people saying not representing your national team. Something you pointed out to me in the past that's really stuck with me is the fact that Steve's career really took off when he stopped playing for the national team, stopped playing basketball in the summer. Guys like Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili do not play basketball in the summer. They play other sports, cross-train. Steve seems to kind of set a trend that way.
Yes, and listen, and that's no disrespect to playing for your country. Steve had put in his time, all right? And Steve has had a back issue for his entire life, and his body needed the rest. And I know people got upset with Steve towards the end of his career for not playing for Canada. Could he have helped us qualify for the World Championships? That, so on and so forth. But he'd already put in 10, 12 years of his life with the national team. But the reality is his career truly took off once he stopped playing for our country. The demands on your body. Basketball, professional sports in general, has become a full year thing. And a lot of guys don't take that too much time off, which is why you see the amount of injuries that we have going on in every sport right now. Of course, we're talking about basketball, major injuries to major stars in the NBA because of the amount of stress that they put on their body throughout the off season besides during the season. And so you need to find a happy medium, a happy balance there. But once again, if your country comes calling, I think you should do your part and don the jersey, don the uniform, because it's very, very important.
Although I think that's an interesting point because, one of his best friends, Dirk Nowitzki, plays that same game, and he has been playing for Germany, right? And to your point, it does play towards, as successful as you are in the NBA game, that national pride, even at his advanced age. And I'm sure a lot of people, including Marc Cuban, are telling him to stay up. And Steve Nash, and the first point you brought up, I thought was really interesting. How he was 15, maybe should have made it. It's almost like his whole career, he's been having to wait a little bit longer.
Just theme of his career
in the spotlight, right? Whether it's spending that time, in Phoenix behind Kevin Johnson and such, Jason Kidd, and then going to Dallas, and then really, showing his gusto, as it were, in Phoenix at later ages. I mean, people are like, how does he produce at such a late age? Well, you know what? He wasn't getting those minutes, kind of like that same system, and it shows the perseverance. I don't know a lot of guys who could have come out of the systems, not had that playing time, and not taken it personally.
But you know what, Phil and Marc, Steve's pursuit of excellence is unquestioned. It's his work ethic off the floor. I've witnessed it. I've worked out with him. Being a young player in high school where nobody thought he was any good, having to send out tapes to every Division I school in the United States just to give him a shot And
Syracuse wouldn't even look at him.
nobody would. The only school that would give him a shot is Santa Clara University, and of course, it was the best decision they made. You know, and to his story has been, like you guys said, everybody's doubted him, and I think that's where he got the work ethic, the pursuit.
Use that as his fuel.
Yeah, no question about it.
Some people can crush them, some people fuel them.
He was always doubted, and that fueled him throughout his whole career. Even the time he spent in Dallas, he had a rocky stint in Dallas.
He was booed a lot at the very beginning.
To where towards the end now, Mark Cuban thought that his career was over, and he thought his back issue was going to derail him. And Mark didn't sign him, and he went back to Phoenix, and everything went crazy from there.
And you remember who they threw that same money at?
Eric
Dampier.
Yes, can you imagine? There
Eric
you go.
Dampier, who is, where is he? Oh, he's not playing
Right.
in the league.
Yeah.
He's out of the league.
And that's it.
Well,
Yeah.
a lot of guys are out of the league now that
Sure.
play with Steve.
I just have one more question though. You were there. Can Steve Nash dunk?
Yes, absolutely. I've
Steve
seen him.
Nash can dunk.
I've seen him dunk one-footed and vertical dunk. Yes.
There you have
He
it.
doesn't,
Absolutely.
the man doesn't need to. That's
No,
the thing.
he doesn't need to, and I've seen it. And he's a much better. I'm glad you brought that. He's a much better athlete than given credit for.
Exactly.
No question about
He
that.
just knew when to use it.
Yes, absolutely.